So in terms of thinking about families being able to live ordinary lives, what are the kinds of things that you think would make a difference to families with disabled children and to disabled young people themselves to enable them to live a more ordinary life?
Disabled youngsters who talk to us, whatever their disability, talk mostly about how their lives are made a greater struggle by the fact that society sees the disability first and not the child. Sees the disability first and no appreciation really that it's more expensive to be a disabled anybody, adult or child, from transport to food to more heating to more laundry bills to whatever, to growing out of the wheelchair and needing another one and so on. Youngsters want to be seen for themselves first and not for the disability that they happen to carry as part of their being. And I would say that about learning disabled youngsters, about deaf or blind youngsters, as well as those who've got mobility issues or learning disabilities. They talk to us about wanting to have their concerns taken first and foremost. And sometimes that can be a challenge for parents as well as for society. I grew up with an aunt, my mother's sister, had Down syndrome, and my experience of my grandparents was that they wanted her to be a child forever, and she didn't want to be a child. I speak to youngsters with a range of disabilities who in their teenage years want to be seen as just as capable of rebellion, just as capable of partying all night, just as capable of wanting to go to university, of wanting to learn to sail a yacht, of wanting to abseil down a cliff, as their able-bodied or non-learning disabled peers. And sometimes everybody needs to let them take risks. And sometimes that can be very, very challenging for people who think that their children are fragile. They want to be seen as growing citizens first and foremost. They want to be seen for their abilities rather than their disabilities. And as Children's Commissioner, we stand foursquare for the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. And Article 23 says, whatever your disability, society must be obligated to enable you to live the fullest possible life in schools under the settings that understand and are the organisations that make allowances for you rather than you having to reach always to make the allowance for the place. And organisations that are part of the principles that govern your work are abiding by those ideas that children and young people are children and young people first, whatever else they bring with them into the world, and whatever else is visited on them. And the United Nations Convention is extremely clear. They are born with these rights, and it's society's duty to give them to them. And work like yours should help to do that. But I guess the big challenge then is to get the organisations concerned to drop their jealousies and their nonsenses and work together. This is about getting in there early, not arguing about who's going to pay for it. I'll never forget talking to a disability campaigner who said, I'm sick of people asking me whether this is a social care bath or a health bath, when the child just needs a bath. We need to drop the preciousness and look at the child first. You're not here for you. If you work in these organisations, you're not here for you, you're here for the child.
And how do you think we can encourage organisations, services, different agencies, health, social care, education, all to work together to provide the support that these families are looking for? I'm not talking about individual service delivery, I'm talking about working together to provide the network of support that families want, because that's a key element of early support to enable services to do that.
In my previous experience in running services and in the conversations I have with youngsters now, partnership working is about sticking to the knitting, if you like. It's about seeing the child first and foremost, putting the child and the child's thoughts, issues, wishes, concerns at the centre of your thinking. so that you only are prepared to listen to that story once and then to act, rather than asking them to tell it all over again, but in your language rather than the language of the school or the language of the health service, or the sense of, oh, for goodness sake, can we just get on with this? Because the child's grown out of the last wheelchair before you get it to them, and they've got to start applying for the next one all over again. The issue here is about the child being the centre of your concerns, not you, not your organisation, the child. And if you listen to what they're telling you, which is what early support and work like it is about, then you can't not do it together. Because as a teacher you can't do health, and as a health worker you're not a teacher. Neither of you are social workers. So come on. Time to work together. And that's what I know the families who've benefited from work like yours and that of other organisations that are bent in the same direction are saying.